screen?
Yes, 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 it is.
Yes. Yeah, so not going to be much of slides today. What we are going to do is a few minutes on slides, and then we'll rush through the Power BI. We are going to do a practical exam of a practical session of building the semantic model. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on the location you are joining. I'm Amit Chandak. I'm a data platform MVP, Power BI community super user. I run a YouTube channel with my own name. I also have a website, biworld.in, where now you can find out, my series clubbed into various pages, also new events which are coming in. Uh, if you want to connect, my email IDs and various social media handles have been given here. Thank you, Rajendra, for inviting for today's session. And today I'm going to present design and implement data model. It means we are going to go to the Power BI desktop. So those who have not installed Power BI desktop or do not have the Power BI desktop, please make sure that you install it. If you want to install it, you can search for download Power BI desktop. That is one way, or you can go to a Microsoft Store, and from there you can also be able to download and or you can just use the install, but you need to have a privilege on your system to install the application. You should be able to do that. Thanks for all of those who are following me on the YouTube for 2.5 million. This is a little older now, 3 million views and 30K followers on LinkedIn. So thank you all those who are part of the community. Then in case you want more of learning, I have this WhatsApp group where I keep on posting the updates. And with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip few slides quickly, and we are going to discuss the Power BI ecosystem and where we are going to have today's session. So when we talk about Power BI, especially you're preparing for PL 300. So Power BI, when we talk, it's an ecosystem. It's just not Power BI desktop now. Power BI desktop is just one part of your development. So we have in the Power BI, we have Power BI service. We even have the on-premise report server. We have paginated reports, which you can build using Report Builder. So usually what I used to happen till some time back, our journey used to start from Power BI desktop. We used to bring in import data, and that's how we used to start our journey. And if we don't want to import the data, we used to directly connect to the sources by using direct query mode. But things have changed over a period of time with the arrival of Fabric and with the arrival of creation of report directly onto the web. So app.powerbi.com is something which we call Power BI service, which is basically where you can now log in and directly create the report. So you are no more be just one second. You are no more dependent on Power BI desktop to create the report. Practically, if you have a login on app.powerbi.com, you should be able to create your reports from scratch on Power BI service. So in the create report left hand side, there's an option there itself. You have now, when you click on that, you have get data option and it opens the Power Query UI. So previously we have Power BI desktop from where we can start. Now we can even start from web. And definitely if you are using Microsoft Fabric, you have moved your data to a lake house or a warehouse, you can again start with a direct lake mode. So these are the various modes. Like when we bring data to Power BI, and means it's Power BI owns the data, we call it import mode. Means the Power BI will have data in its own format. When you don't bring data to Power BI, there are two modes. One is direct lake mode, second is direct query mode. In case of direct lake mode, the data is in Microsoft Fabric. Now, and it supports basically Delta format files. Now, outside Microsoft Fabric, Power BI right now don't support Delta, but yes, the Power BI engines support the Delta storage. It treats it like native files, which Power BI has, and it can work directly with that. And that's why we call direct lake mode, because the data is owned by the lake, but Power BI is still behaving very much similar to import mode. Then finally, the third option where we can analyze the data in Power BI using the direct query mode, DQ mode. And in the direct query mode, we don't bring in the data. We just configure it on mostly RDBMS databases where direct query mode is supported. And we just build up the metadata. We create relationship between the tables. We create measures, as if possible, some calculated columns, very simple one. And then we analyze the data using Power BI desktop. So that mode is called direct query. Here again, Power BI doesn't own the data, just like direct lake mode, but it is not also native to Microsoft ecosystem. They are relying on RDBMS, where Microsoft Power BI is going to send the queries, and it is much more limited compared to the other two options. So in today's journey, we are going to start our journey with Power BI Desktop, and we are going to create a semantic model. When you are starting your journey with Power BI Desktop, Power BI Desktop is not like your Excel. It's basically requiring complete data modeling. We usually prefer star schemas. Now, right now, we don't have enough time to explain you, but star schema is where we have the all the measurables things inside the fact. You can have more than one fact, and all the whatever you want to measure, you want to measure it against certain attributes. That's what we call dimensions. So all the facts are surrounded by dimensions, and all the dimensions are surrounded by fact. No two dimensions join with each other, no fact join with each other. So that's the kind of model we prefer here. You can read more about it. Also, the Power BI desktop is not the place where we are going to have this analysis done or sharing done or collaboration done. This is just a developer tool. We have to publish it on Power BI service, and there we have to share. The entire collaboration start from Power BI service. And for that collaboration, you need to have organizational account. As an individual, I can have one free account if I have an organizational login, and I can work with my workspace, because when you publish it on service, you need workspaces, and that's where you will be able to share your content. Now, you can have your own workspace, or you can be part of another workspace only when you have some licenses, pro or PPU, or if you are part of a capacity. In spite of having a capacity, which in these cases are fabric capacities F2, F4, F64, as a Power BI developer, you always require a license, whether it's a pro or PPU. Viewers doesn't require license after F64. Now, when you publish on Power BI service, even if you are in import mode, just like we are going to have today, in desktop, you might have one PBX file or the project file. On the Power BI service, these things are going to be divided into two parts. One part we call semantic model, and another part we call as the report. So you will have semantic model, and as well as what we call data set here and the report. They are separated out. Now this semantic model or data set can again be consumed by Power BI desktop. So ideal way, if you are working on import mode, is that you are going to create your model, publish it in your Power BI service without creating a visual or one or two test visual. And then after you publish the semantic model, you are going to consume it for the visualization, not before that. There are other things like, we have data marts, which are going out with the Microsoft Fabric now. Data flow, current data flows, which are supported for Power BI as data flow Gen 1, but data flow Gen 2 are replacing them. And they can also participate in bringing in data into the Microsoft Power BI ecosystem. Today, we are going to do a very simple stuff where we are going to bring in the data to Power BI desktop using GitHub. I have a generic data. Also, the good news is that I have prepared a better version of that data, which I'm still under testing, and that will be available on biworld.in in some time. So you will be able to use that data also. So let me move to the next slide. I'm going to skip this slide. So I'm going to show you the data model which I have. So this is basically the ideal data model which is there in the OLTP system. Means when you do the transaction, the actual tables would be in relational model, and there you will have a table for everything, and you will keep on breaking that model unless you have the information which is non-repetitive. Then we have the dimensional model, snowflake model, where facts and dimension comes in. The dimension can still join with each other. But if you notice here, the sales table has is combination of sales details and sales header. And then finally you come with the star schema, where you have the facts and dimension. No fact will join each other, no dimension will join each other. It doesn't mean that you cannot have multiple facts and dimension. A dimension can join with multiple fact, a fact can join with multiple dimension, and both hold true. So in this manner, you will be able to create a galaxy schema with multiple stars. So with that, what we are going to do today is we are going to jump on Power BI desktop. How many of you have already have Power BI desktop? Can somebody say yes, no, or type in the questions? Hope some of you have Power BI desktops. Yes, no? Okay. I see one yes. Okay, fine. Very good. So you can start opening your Power BI desktop. If you want to do it with me, I'll go a little slow so that we can create a schema along with you. And with that, I'm going to give you one link. Here is the link, github.com Amit Chandak PBI/Power BI, where you will get all the files which I use across my channel. So if you go to my channel, you will find 120-hour video where you can further learn this entire Power BI, even the interview questions. The links I'm giving for that also, and most of the videos using this particular GitHub account. Now, first time I'm going to put things outside the GitHub because I have files which I wanted to share with you, which is more than 25 MB, and that's where I'm bringing up a little bigger data so that you can work with a little bigger data. So that will be shared via BI World coming out soon. So what we have to do here from the github.com, if you scroll down, we're going to take the simplest file from here. And the simplest file which you're going to take is this sales data used in video. Now, this is the data which is there, sales data used in video. Just give me, I'm going to highlight that for you. And sales data used in video, you can directly use the link which is available here. So what we do is we open this link and take the raw link. So there are two type of links which comes from GitHub. One is the raw link and one is the blob link. So by default, if you click on this name, you will get the blob link. And don't worry if I'm looking on the side because I'm using two screens. And this blob on the URL is something we need to change with raw. But if you open it, you can see raw written here. Don't click on that, right click and copy link and keep handy with you. We are going to use this. So I'm going to paste this inside the chat window also. This is what we are going to use now for today's class. Now, those who have already have Power BI desktop, please open it. The Power BI desktop, this is the latest version. I have installed it using the Microsoft Store, so I'm always on the latest version. So you can download and install. Your IT can push a copy. Means IT managed, it could be there. That's a way because they have their IT will make sure that entire organization is on the same version of Power BI desktop. And so and for personally for us is basically we download and install or we use the Microsoft Store. So I installed using the Microsoft Store and the version keep on automatically getting updated. Uh, so here, what we are going to do, once you open, you might not have these recent files. It might be pretty much blank here. And you have to click on the blank report. I'm going to click on the blank report and as you can see, it has, various tabs and everything. Right now, I'm going to explain you a little bit of about these things. So you can see various panes on the right hand side and the left hand side. There is a pane and then there are ribbon items. So on the left hand side, you will have this report view basically where we are going to create our visuals. Then you have the table view. Then you have the model view. And finally, you have the two views which are added very recently, which is DAX view and Tyndall view. So these are the various views which you are going to have. And so DAX view is basically just like if you are on SQL Server, sometimes you runs the queries. You want to run some queries in DAX, then you can use DAX view. Tyndall view is basically in the format where the Power BI files are saved. If you are really advanced user, you can go ahead and change the things in the Tyndall view and can do certain changes to data model, to the tables and etc. So that's a very advanced view. So, but we are going to start with a simple view where we are going to use the low code, no code, drag and drop kind of stuff. Now on the top, we have the ribbon, and from the ribbon, you have get data, which we are going to use today. And then we have transform data. Now transform data, under the transform data, you again have the transform data. And that's where we are going to go to Power Query. And the Power Query is the powerhouse where you can do the transformation. So Power BI, you can connect, bring in the data. So we usually call 4 stages of data analytics. In that 4 stages, we have, data collection, which is basically we can get the data transformation, which is Power Query for us, data analysis, which we are going to do using DAX, and data presentation, which we are going to do using report views. So all the things are present in Power BI. And for medium up to some extent, a large customer, you can do everything on Power BI in import mode with the capacities. But yes, if you are going really large and you need a generic ecosystem, what happens when we transform the data? Our objective is to share it with multiple people for AI and everything. But Power BI import mode is not so great in sharing back the data, and that's why you go and prefer Microsoft Fabric over Power BI import mode, because you can then, because today I want to do AI, then I have thousand other things wanted to do. Now we got refin, so we want to do custom UIs, and that can be done on semantic model. But we still prefer to have the things on a generic storage like warehouses and lake houses, and that's where Microsoft Fabric is playing its role. But transform data, which I'm not going to discuss today, is something where you can go ahead and do the transformation. Again, I have provide you the link, and we are also going to have some session today in this series where you are going to see Power Query in action, where you will be able to do the transformation of data. Then we have various other tabs. I'm not going to go through that, but view tab is really important. If you see, I have checked data, build, format, bookmarks, performance analyzer, selection, sync, slicer, etc. And most of them you are also able to see them on the right hand side. So if you go on the right hand side, you will be able to see for icons for that. It means while these are enabled on the here on this pane, I can still go ahead and choose not to show them. Okay, so to double control, you can say. Let's say if I remove build here, now I can't see build here. So I need to have build enabled from the view, and then on the right hand side I can see it. For us, really important is data, view, data, build, format. Performance analyzer is not so important. Bookmarks, as and when we need it, we can add it. Sync slicer, as and when we need it. So first three are really important, which we need to use for developing any kind of visualization. Any questions you have, please explain which data set. So I think I just explained a few minutes back, and I also given the direct link. We are using the data, sales data used in video, and above that, I think I should have given you the link of the complete GitHub, where you can use that particular GitHub files. Various files are there, like for Power Query, we have pivot and pivot data. For sales data used in Fabric is there. Then there is inside there is a folder. There is one more file which I created using this sales data and use video, which is I have untransformed the data. You are doing the data transformation, but I have done one step ahead, where you have to do quite a few transformation of Power Query on that data. And there is a Cura link. I think probably I'll give you that assignment link, which you can try out to test your that whether I'm able to do this on Power BI or not. So very simple thing we are going to do is we are going to bring in the data, and for that I'm going to use get data. And those of you are using it in Dataflow Gen 2 in Microsoft Fabric, you need to use Web API, but here you can use Web on Power BI Desktop. So get data under the home ribbon, click on Web, and now you should be able to okay, we have something try new. Uh, I'm just going to say no thanks right now, but definitely later on I can enable it. Now here you can give the URL in the basic one. So there is a URL, and this is the same URL. The only thing you need to take care, it should be raw here. See, it should not be blob. If it's blob, change it to raw. Click on OK. It should read that file. And the reason I do it like this is going to make life really easy for every one of us when you are practicing or when you are watching my video, that okay, this is the file which is available on GitHub and you can use it. And now it gives me all the 4 tables. Now I have already created a perfect star schema. I'm not going to teach you transformation today. So I already have a perfect star schema which you can use, but I'm going to share a link later where once you learn the Power Query from the today's session, you can go ahead and practice whether you can create back this perfect star schema, and that's where you're going to try it out. So when you click on any of these names, you can get the data view. But if you see the load button is not enabled till now, and neither the transform button is enabled, the reason for that is you need to actually click on the checkbox. Once you click on the checkbox, then only it is going to select. So just by clicking on the table name is not going to solve the purpose, and you should check all the checkboxes. They should show this teal color box with the right in the white, and that means it's selected. Now, what's the difference between this load button and transform button? So we have 2 buttons here. If you can see, transform data and load button. And the difference between the 2 is basically, if I load, it's directly going to load without doing any changes to this data. As this is going to load. And because this is a perfect star schema data all sorted out, I'm going to use that. But let us say you have a very huge data. Power BI Desktop has its own limitation. It cannot, work with very huge data, and it will slow down. Basically, it's not the limit that it cannot get the data. It's just they're going to be slow down. Or definitely, why should I have so much data on desktop? I definitely doing my development. Why should I want things to slow down with the huge data on my desktop? And I should not have organizational data on my desktop. Or when I need transformation, I need to transform my data before it can be consumed. It's not in a shape. It's neither a star schema, or sometimes the tables are like pivot tables. The tables are itself not in shape. So in such case, we're going to click on transform data. First, go and either control our data or transform our data. And then from there, we apply the changes and we come here, which is basically very similar to load data. But in spite of I clicking on load data, the Power Query layer is going to be created. You will still be able to see these tables inside the transform data in the Power Query view, and you will be able to do some additional transformation on Power Query, like creating calculated column, etc., which we are not going to do. We are simply going to click on load data here. Once we load data, it's going to show you, and especially sometime if take a little more time, then it is going to show you how many rows are loaded, how many data has been loaded, and all those. And you can see syncing schema synchronization, and these messages have improved over a period of time. So sometime, if you look at the older video and look at the messages, they might not be very similar. Okay, so very small data, 30,000 rows only, and it has been loaded here. There was a message coming on the top. Sometime, let's say this load fails, it will still keep on showing that message. Okay, and then you can reload the data. So that message will be there. Now once we load the data, the first thing, there are two things we can do. One is we can create some calculated columns or measures, means some of the enhancement to this model we wanted to do, we can do that. Or we can create the model. Now, if you go to the model view, you will see, oh, this model is already created. There is already a relationship. How come we got all these relationships? Now, you may not experience the same kind of things in direct lake or direct query model sometime, but here in the import mode, you will see this, especially on the desktop. And the reason for that is one particular setting. And where do we find these settings? So you have to go to File, Options and Settings below, and Options. Once you click, you will see Options. Click on Options, and this is the place where you will get all the options, even something in, let's say, private public preview, and you wanted to get that option. So there is a, let's say, preview features. Very recently, we got, let's say, a new Power BI experience is our modern visual with default customization improvement, export Power Queries, warehouse snapshotting, date picker, which very came recently, few days back only. So all these, if you need, you have to click on those. So you can decide which all preview feature you wanted to have inside your organization, and you can use that. Now, if you go to current file data load, you will see auto detect new relationships after data is loaded. So inside this current file, means for the current file setting data load, you can see auto detect new relationship after the data is loaded. This is what causing the new relationships to come in. So even before I could have analyzed and got these things, they are already present. You can choose to click on OK or cancel. I'm going to choose to click on cancel because I already have this data available with me. Let me click on cancel. Now, because I wanted to understand and create these relationships, I would definitely like to create it manually. And one of the things which is missing in this model is basically what we call the date table, which, if the time permits, we are going to create by ourselves. Now I'm going to delete these relationships. Click on the wire and click on delete. We wanted to learn it manually how to create it, so I'm going to click here and delete it. Also, you see one of the relationship is a dotted wire. This is what we call the invalid relationship, or the loop is not completed, because the reason was, if you look at the previous relationship, there were two paths from the customer table. If I can revert it, let me see. Okay, I'm not able to revert it, but there were two paths between customer and sales table. Customer table directly joined with the sales table, and customer table joined with the sales table via geography, and two paths are not allowed. In Power BI, you cannot have two paths to reach between two tables, and this is invalid. Now there are paths which are multiple paths are allowed between two tables, and then inactive join can stay, and you can activate it using use relationship. But in an ideal scenario, you should not have an inactive path. Now, how do we join it? So we by knowing our model, this is a sales model. What does it contain? It contains a sales data. City wise, customer wise, item wise, which order number, how much price, what quantity of what item I have sold. And if there is any discount I have given, I have that information here. So I have dimensions which is going to tell me item information, and I'm going to join using the item ID. So I can click on any of these tables, like say item table. I'm going to click on item ID and drag and drop it on the sales table. And that's going to create my relationship. It's going to open a pop-up where it's going to show that item ID is joined with item ID. And then the relationship is one to many. What does it mean? One to many relationship means the table on the top or the table on the left is having all the unique values for item ID. Even blanks are not allowed. We call it blank, or sometime in the database language we can say null. There is a little difference between two, but even blanks are not allowed here. There are unique item IDs available, and they are not repeating in the one side of the table. It means it's a primary key here. Now on the right hand side or below, we have item ID, which is on many side. It means the item IDs are repeating. And that's true. The item table should have the item ID as unique identifier, and the sales table I can sell multiple items. It means I will have one to many relationship. Then direction, single or both. Single means the one side of the table is going to filter the many side of the table, or both means even the sales table can filter item table. Just for this table, I'm going to make it both so that I can explain you the difference between the two. And for rest of this, we are going to make it single. Ideally, we do not prefer bidirectional filters unless they are most needed, because this helps in reducing the dimension data. Sometimes you will come across an end user who will say, no, I don't want to see the items which I have not sold in this period. If you come across this, how would you know what are the items sold in that period? But there could be multiple filters. How do you identify? So that's where the bidirectional join comes in, and it comes handy because it can reduce the number of items in the item table, which is basically uh, the current version of your data. But there is a cost attached to it. It fired multiple queries just to get that. And especially it is risky when you are using direct query mode, because every query is fired back to the database sources. And that is why we usually avoid the bidirectional joins. We would find out the meaning of this, but let's save this right now. So we created one relation which is bidirectional, and you have this properties pane which could be sometime minimized like this. Using this arrow, you can minimize and maximize. And if you want to bring in any other changes, like say from bidirectional, I can want to make it single directional, I can click here and do it. And if the security filters are required, I can do that. Now there is another method which is little more manual, which is basically coming under home and manage relationship, where I can manually go ahead and create relationship. So into the center, you have this manage relationship. And here you can already see the existing relationship. You can edit them by clicking on this, or I'm going to click on new relationship. And here I can have the blank slate to choose my tables. So I'm going to choose this time sales table first, and I'm going to choose the customer table as second. And automatically identify the customer IDs because they have matching names. If they don't have, you can go ahead and click on each one of them, one column. And Power BI only create a relationship in one column. It means if you don't have the single key column, you have to go ahead and create a join. Like I can do control click, okay? I can't do shift click. It is only one column join. Okay, so you need to have a surrogate key, or you need to have one single composite key which is going to join. Prefer it to be a numeric key for the faster one. If your keys are non-numeric, then you need a little bit of data engineering to make it numeric. Again, that can be done in Power Query, or that can be done in Microsoft Fabric using various technologies. Why the relation? So that's the thing for about the relationship. Now cardinality here is many to one, and the reason for many to one this time, sales table is above or on the left, and the customer table is below or on the right. And this time the sales table definitely will have multiple same customer repeating multiple times, buying multiple times, but in the customer table it is going to be uniquely identifiable. And so that's why customer table, it is one. Many to one this time relationship, and it's a single directional. I want it to filter the table. Now what we are going to do is, I'm not going to join it right now with the geography table, because I wanted to showcase you few things. What happens when there is no join? or what happens when there is a bidirectional join. So let's understand that. And to understand these things and what happens when you don't have join and what happens when you have bidirectional join, let's go to the report view. So on the report view, first of all, let me bring in the sales table. And along with sales table, I'm going to bring geography table and item table also. So from item table, I'm going to bring brand and drag it into the empty space. It's automatically going to create a table visual for me. But if I want to create visuals, I can also go ahead and create it first by clicking on the empty space, clicking on a visual, and then I'm dragging, let's say, city from the geography table and can do it. I can move around these. Now to make it a little more visible, I'm going to change the zoom here. So let me change the zoom. Hopefully this is better visible now. And I'm going to put my tables near to each other. So first example, we want to understand what's the difference between the table which is joined versus what the difference between the table which is not joined. Now from the sales table, I'm going to bring in quantity. Ideally, I should create measures which we have not learned right now, but I'm going to use quantity from here. And one of my system is just in front of me, so let me move it. I'm going to click on quantity and bring it onto the brand table. And if you see here, it automatically changing it to arrange data. I have enabled this on object interaction. So because of that, there is a setting for on object interaction. So I'm going to say arrange data for me off so that it always keep the same visual. And I'm going to change it back to the table visual. So if you look at this data, there is different quantities. Unless there is an exception, usually you will have different quantities for all the brands or items or something. It's very rare that I sell the same amount of quantity for all the brands. But the moment I drag it on the city, you see the same number as the grand total of this one. Look at the grand total of this one and look at this number. For all the cities, I'm getting the same number. And if you are facing a situation like this, it means you are missing a join. There is no join or there is a wrong join. If there is a misbehavior in the relationship, if all the quantities or all the major values are same as the grand total, then probably there is no join. And if it is not showing as expected, probably there is some problem with the relationship column. So these are the things. So with the correctly created things, you can see the relationship is correct. Now, this is the first page came by default. I would now like to explain you the difference between so I have explained you what happens when you don't have joins. We are going to go ahead and correct that join. Now, what happens when I have bidirectional join versus single directional join? I want to understand that also. So I will go to bottom. I'm near to the page one. I have another icon of plus in the teal color with white icon of plus. I'm going to click on that so that I get a new page. And in this new page, I'm going to add 3 tables, table 1, table 2, and in the empty space, table 3. On the first table, I'm going to bring something from item table. I'm going to bring item ID. And the reason for that is that I want to showcase you what's happening. I think that was the bidirectional join, which was the bidirectional. Item is bidirectional. And on third table on the right hand side, I'm going to bring customer. Customer was single directional, isn't it? Customer ID and name. And let me bring in from the sales table. I can bring anything, but I just want to bring item ID and customer ID right now so that I can showcase you what's happening. Now I can click on item and all the visual interact with each other. It's not only the slicer interact with each other. All the visual in Power BI interact with each other unless they're stopped. They have been asked to stop using the interactions. So there is something which we call interaction between the visual. It can be stopped or it can be changed in terms of the behavior depending on the visual, which you'll learn later on in the visualization. If I click on the item ID now, you see all item ones are coming. Okay. And you see there is no impact on the customer table. Fine, that's good. So item is filtering the sales table. The middle one is the sales table. I click on the customer ID and now look at this. The item ID, the customer ID one got filtered, but surprisingly the item also got filtered. And the reason for that, the moment the sales table got filtered, it also filtered the items because of its bidirectional nature. Now I'm only seeing the items which has been sold to the customer, not only in the sales table, but also in the item table. And that is what the bidirectional filter does. I can unclick again, and which will actually remove the filter. I can here also, I can go ahead. Now it has all the items. So I can click on item 2 here. Now you see item 2, customer ID 415. There is no filter on the customer table here. There is no 415 filter here, but item 2 has been filtered on the other table. And that is again because of the bidirectional join. Your bidirectional join is causing this to filter. So that's now I am hopeful now you understand the difference between the single directional join and bidirectional join. Now, bidirectional joins are really helpful. Sometimes there are places where we need these kind of things. They are really helpful, but bidirectional join can again create loops or multiple paths, because let's say there are two facts and both the facts you do bidirectional join. It means from fact A to fact B, I got a path to do go. And in such cases, if there are loops which are getting created or multiple paths, it may start erroring. So if you are in a schema, when you are doing bidirectional join, be a little careful. Bidirectional join on the dimension sides are fine. Between dimension to dimension, you will reach to some scenario where you will have dimension to dimension, or you will have a security table on top of your dimension. All the scenarios fine, but when you are creating between fact and dimension, be a little careful. It may end up creating loops or multiple paths, and your schema may start erroring out. But yes, there is fit for purpose always. When I have a need like this, it can be really fit for the purpose. There are workaround. There are workaround. How can you reduce it even without using bidirectional filter? That I think not for right now the current class. You can explore that little later. So we now understood the different kind of joins. So this is how we create our model. Now the so now what happens is basically all the tables should have join unless they don't supposed to join. So the missing join, we understood that city ID was missing the join. So now I can bring city ID and I can drag it on the city ID of the geography city ID on the city ID of sales, and I'll create again one-to-many single directional join and click on save. Now this time when I created the relationship between the geography and sales, it is not inactive like the first time it was there in case when the model got auto relationship. The reason for that is there are not two paths. All the dimensions are only joined with fact, and there is only one fact, the fact only joined with dimension. This is perfect star schema for us. And if I go back to my report view, you remember on the page 1, I was not getting the correct quantities for city. Now I'm getting that. So this is the way you create your relationships. And what is the bidirectional relationship? What happens when you don't have a relationship? Now there is one more important table, which is date table. Now again, the date table can come from sources and you can create it here. That's also really important for any schema to have a date table. Now with the date table on the desktop, we have multiple options. We have to mark a date table as date table. Now we have calendar options, which I have enabled in my environment, which allows you to create even financial calendar. You can define the dates of your calendar, and using that you can do it. Now I would like to create a very simple date table. And with that, I'm going to showcase you how to create a table, how to create calculated columns. Now, while I'm going to show you how to create calculated column here on the date table, there is a better way to create date table using the add columns script. So I'm going to avoid that today, but I can give you the script or you can find it in my video. So I'm going to click on new table here. In new table means here I'm going to create a table in the DEX. So I can give it a name. I'm going to give it as a name as date table. Now date auto is the easiest way to create a date table, but when you have more than multiple table, don't try to use date calendar auto. Calendar is the function which can generate the calendar or date table. It generates the sequence of dates. So calendar function is very simple. It generates the sequence of date between two dates. Calendar auto will automatically do it for you. So you can use calendar auto and it is going to do the job for you, and just take the function. You can define an end date. You can say, okay, where should it end? But I'm going to keep it just simple calendar auto. And to understand it better, I'm going to go to data view, because for all the import tables, you will be able to see the data in the data view. So like sales, this is my data item, this is my data date, this is my data. So I can see it is getting data from 1st January 2018 and till the last data I have. If I see saw descending, I can see till 2020 December. So very first date, start of the year, very last date, end of the year. Otherwise, I can use the calendar function, which sometime you may have to prefer to avoid the what you call the there is an issue if you have multiple tables, it start giving you that uh, error that it's not able to create the table. So that you want to avoid that, you can use the calendar function. Here you have to hard code the date. We can use min-max function and all other things to get the date again. But I'm going to use inside the calendar function, there are two arguments which are required. The first argument is start date and the second argument is end date. And you can see it is automatically highlighted here also. And it can take date function, and there is a way to write down the date in the short dt and something you can do use that. The date function requires three argument, year 2018, month 01 and day 01. So I've given the first argument, again the second argument date 2020 hyphen 12 comma 12 comma 31 last date. So the end date should be typically the last date of the year or last date of the quarter or something like that. If you have custom calendar, like if I'm creating Indian financial calendar, it may end in March. So I've created the same calendar using the date. Now I would definitely want to have additional column. I can change this script to have a function which is known as add columns, and it will allow me to create it like in a script manner, keep on adding the table. Or I can use the manual way. I can click on any table or any column and I will get either the table tools or column tools, and both of them have option for new column, and I can create a new column. Now I'm going to create a column for month year. And the reason for creating the month year column is basically it's a text column. Now Power BI doesn't have a auto function for month year. It is not going to treat something as month year and it's sorted. So that is why it is really important to show you what happens when we create a text column like month year. How does Power BI behave with that? So I'm going to take the argument which is already available columns, date of date, or I can simply take date, comma, format. Now format function can be used on numbers, it can be used on dates, and you can format them as per requirement. But if when you're doing major formatting, there is a separate format option which is available at the major level. You should use that because it keeps it number and still formats it. So MMM, Jan, Feb, March, 3-digit one, 4-digit means all of them, January, February, March. Hyphen Y. It doesn't matter index, small y or capital Y as far as I know, and you can press enter. Now, if you give 4M instead of this one, you will get it like this, January. And if you give 2M, you will get a number one. Okay, but I need 3M. This is how we usually prefer it. Now, my date table is ready. There are a few things you should be doing, and that is for making your time intelligence to work. Thing one is the date table should have all the dates. So if you remember with the calendar auto, I've seen what date range I have. I understand my data. So I have all the dates in my date table. The date table should be connected with my all the transaction table or the fact tables. So I need to join it. So I'm going to join my date of the date table with the sales date of my sales table. Look, both of them are looking as dates. They are still there as date. I'm going to join it. One to many, single directional join. Click on save. And you see only one side it is seen as date. The date function has gone from here. We're going to do a few more changes and things are going to change. So now my table is joined and you have seen if what happens if it is not joined. The third, so that all the dates are available, the date table is joined, then the right click on the date table, and then you are going to use mark it as date table. Calendar option not coming here. Why? Oh yeah, calendar option. Now online versus this version can have. So either you will get mark as date table or you'll get calendar options. I have enabled calendar option, so I'm getting calendar option. I'm not creating a new calendar. I'm just marking it as a date table, mark as date table. It's going to enable the mark as date table. Choose a date table column. You should choose the primary key of this table date, and look at the right now. Look at this place, okay, and as well as this place. Before I click on the save, look at the triangle. Before save, and let me save this. Now you realize you look at this date table. It is marked as key now. Okay, and now even now there would be no date hierarchies for the date column in the date table as well as the dates which are joined with that. All of those going to lose the auto date hierarchy. There is something known as auto date hierarchy where we have date, month, quarter, year, which you are going to lose because of that. Now, I would definitely go ahead and want to test it, what I got from all this exercise. So I'll go to my report view and I'm going to add a new page. Now you know from where it need to be done. I'm going to drag this month here. And along with this month here, I'm going to drag my sum of quantity. And let me convert this back into a table visual. I click on a visual and I can also go to the build view and click on that. Any view which you need, data view, build view, you can get it from right side. Build view is really important. Build view, format view. Format is to format your visual, and that is really important for us. So, but it is sorted on sum of quantity. We don't sort the months on sum of quantity. We are going to sort on month. But you see the problem now. April and April are together, and that is where in Power BI I said that okay, we don't have a way to tell okay this is month, and that's where we have a concept of sort column. Now here I'm going to go back to my calendar table, and I'm going to add a new column. And this column is something, it's going to be a number column or it could be a text column where I can sort it. But I actually still wanted to use this month here. I want to use the month year column, but I want it to sort correctly. To sort correctly, first of all, I need to figure out a way to create a column which is sorted correctly. So I'm going to create a column month year sort. There are two ways. I can use format function or I can use a numeric column. So if I want a numeric column, I can do it a little differently. So I'm going to show you the way to do the numeric one. So I'm going to use year function on my date of date, and multiply it by 100. And then I'm going to add the month onto it. Basically, I want y, mm. Now, if I get 4y and I add mm, they will be added into the years only. So I multiplied it by 100 to create two additional digits which are always 0, 0. So that is why now last two digits are 0, 0 because year has been multiplied by 100. And now if I add month, it will be added there. Okay. So y, mm is what I'm going to get in number form, in numeric form. So month of date again, date of date, and now you get it. Or in the format you could have given y, mm. So here this one, I got a month years column which is y, mm. Okay. Or on the month year column you could have said 4 y without hyphen mm. That is also fine. That would have been a text column. This is a numeric column. You can change the data type. Okay, from here you can change the data type and format. That's not a problem. But I just wanted to show you how to create in the numeric manner also. Now this column is sorted. If I use it, it's sorted because it's created in such a manner. But this column is not going to sort still. To do that, click on this column month here, which is actually not having the correct sorting. And then go onto the column tools. Select the column which is not sorting correctly. Go to the column tools, click on sort by column, and then go ahead and use the column which can sort this correctly. And this is one-to-one mapping. Every value in the month year column should have only one value in month year sort and vice versa. If you do that, it may not work. If you violate that, it may not work. And that is why sometimes, people have this issue that, okay, it's not working. It's not going to work. Another thing is, some of you may say, oh, why I have a date here. Why don't I change the format to like this? Okay, month here. Internally, it is date. Just changing the format from the column tool does not mean that the number has actually changed its format. It is still date inside, or it is still the same number inside. So be careful. This is not going to become month year. It's not going to, you will see repeated month years. You can try that out after the class. If you simply format the date without creating a new column, you are still going to have multiple times a month getting displayed. And the reason for that is that it's internally, it's still a date. Now, when you go to the visual, now you see the sorting is correct. October, November, December, January, February, March. One thing which you also might have noticed, and if you're not noticed, just wanted to bring your attention. Power BI always groups the data or shows you distinct data of the combinations of your non-group by columns. So this is basically, if you see sum, there is an option, summarization, or this is not summarized. So all the not summarized column are showing the distinct value, or there you can say they are grouped by. So data is always grouped by. There is no table visual in Power BI which shows the row level data. If your table does not have a row level ID, it is not going to show you row level data. And that is why in my sales table, I have order ID or order number, which is at the row level. If I want to show the row level data, I need to have an ID column. I cannot show it without that. Yes, let's say if the brand ID is getting aggregated, I can always go and change its aggregation. So I can click on the brand ID and I can say don't summarize. That's possible. I can go to the item ID and I can say don't summarize, so that at the moment I put it in the visual, start grouping on that. That's possible. But if I don't have, I will not be able to get the row level data. So Power BI visuals always aggregates. Now we got the date table, we marked it as date table. Now we can even create the time intelligence formulas. But time intelligence is really little ahead, and I think it will get covered in some session. I just wanted to, I already showed you columns, which we call also calculated columns. The feature of the calculated column are they are calculated at the time of creation or at the time of next refresh. When I want to refresh my file again, they're going to be calculated again, and they are going to be saved with the file. So when I save this file, they are physically going to be saved onto the disk or onto the cloud storage if I'm using the Power BI service. So this is demo 19th July 2026. Okay, so they are going to be saved. So that is what we call calculated column. Then the second thing, what we have, measures. Measures is something which are only definition and they are not saved as a calculation. So I'm going to go to the sales table and I'm going to show you one example of calculated column once more and for a measure. We always prefer to have measures whenever we wanted to drag any calculation inside our visual, because there is something known as calculation group. If you want to use calculation group, there cannot be an implicit measure. What was implicit measure? When I drag the quantity and it is shown as sum of quantity, that is implicit measure. We're going to discuss that later, but I'm going to create a new column here. And the new column is something known as gross. I don't have something known as quantity multiplied by price. I'm going to call it gross amount. And this is going to be quantity multiplied by price. Always prefer to have fully qualified name when you are creating a column. Quantity multiplied by price, gross. You can see that into the table visual. And when I save the file, it is going to also save on the disk or on the cloud service when I publish it. So, and you know how to create a measure, click on the table or a column and then you new column. There is a second type of stuff which is measure, and we'll always have measures in our this one. And measures, column belongs to table, measure belongs to model. So I can create a column from the sales measure from a sales table. I can create a measure from the sales table, which is actually there in the customer table because they belong to model. So all the base columns belong to sales table. So click on the sales table, click on table tools and new measure. And I'm going to create a very simple measure, and the measure is gross measure. And I knowingly call it gross amount. It's nothing but sum of gross amount. Now, sum function cannot take formula inside it. We have SumX function for that. And I'm going to skip telling you the difference between the row level measures and the measures. But measure typically work directly at the aggregated level, while the columns work at the row level. So each row, the value is calculated like this, you can see here. But for measure, you see only definition. It is not added to the table, though it is part of the table. I can even change its home table to customer. It can go to the customer table also, or any other table. We typically move them to the measure table. So the measure only is definition. It's not stored as a pre-calculated calculation, and it is calculated always runtime onto the visual. So here I'm going to bring in a new, or on this same visual, I'm going to bring into two things, which is gross amount, which is shown as sum of gross amount, and a measure, which is sum of gross, which is already included in it. Now the difference between two is this is explicit measure and this is implicit measure. Explicit because I have explicitly defined it. This is implicit measure because sum of gross has been given by Power BI here. I can change it if required. But in spite of that flexibility of changing the aggregation from anything, we always prefer to create the explicit measures. And that is recommended way. Always you should have measures for this, because in future, if you need to use calculation group, it may create trouble having all these orders one. So this is where you create measures. Measures are only definition, calculated runtime, and they are not calculated at row level. They are calculated based on the place where you are using. So this is right now getting calculated at the month year level. Why this is getting summed up at month year level, this is also automatically aggregated and coming at the month year level. So this is calculated column versus measure. With this is the time what we have for today. I've shown you how to create a model and how do you create a date table, a simple date table, and how did you create calculated columns and widgets. There are more to it, and I'm hopeful in the next classes that will get covered. Anything you missed out, I already given you the 20-hour video, and I think Rajendra has reposted that. Things are covered there in details. UI could be a little different. The video was created and released in 2025. It was edited throughout the 2024. So you might see some older UIs. So I hope you find it pretty useful, and let me know if you have some questions uh, before we move to the next session. Open for your questions. You can unmute and ask the questions.
Thank you so much, Amit. And I posted Amit's LinkedIn handle and as well as the YouTube channel. Please
Rajendra,
subscribe
if you
and
are
as well as
speaking
post it.
something, you are on mute. I can
Yeah,
see,
can you
but I'm
hear
not
me?
able to. Okay, hold on. Is
Can you
it
hear me?
my? Yeah, now you're audible.
Guys, if you
Okay,
have any
see.
queries, please post it or else you can unmute to me, like raise your hand so that I can unmute. You can speak with Amit directly. Yeah. Hi, Suchit. Yes. Please ask your question, Suchit.
Okay, yeah.
Suchit, you're on
So,
mute.
yeah, I had a question on the capacity. I wanted to know the difference between Power BI and Fabric capacities, how it is being charged.
Okay,
Although
so
it is not related to this topic that you discussed today, but yeah, I had this question from long time.
basically, now there is no Power BI capacities. Previously, we used to have P1, P2, P3. Everything is now Fabric capacities. Now, why do we need capacity? Because capacity gives us a storage, a compute which is not shared. So if you have a Pro or PPU, you licenses, you are still using the shared capacities. You get exclusive capacity when you use the when you purchase the capacities. And in Fabric, you cannot start Fabric, especially if you say Power BI the direct lake mode, unless you have a Fabric capacity. In Power BI, I can live with Power BI Pro, the max 10 GB storage, max model size is 1 GB. Or PPU, I think max model size is 100 GB, and we have 1 terabyte of space available for each user having the PPU license. We can live with that. If you require more than that, if you require, and if you have a PPU uh, workspace, the creator is PPU, the viewers also need to PPU license. With Pro and PPU, every user needs a license. And that is where we move towards capacity. In the Power BI world, we always used to have minimum capacity as P1, which is equivalent of F64. And the meaning for that capacity was the viewer doesn't require license. Please understand, before I have F64 capacity, or in the previous world, the P1 capacity, even every viewer required a Power BI license. In Power BI, the concept of viewer is controlled at the workspace level, not at the license level. There's no viewer license. Everybody needs a Power BI license, either to view the content or to create the content. But this exemption comes after F64 or previously the P1, that the viewer doesn't require license post that. If you have more than F64 capacity, then the viewers doesn't require license, whether you are in import mode or direct query mode or direct lake mode. Now, there are different charges. Typically, the F2 capacity start with $262 and some more pennies. $262 you can take, and every capacity is just a double of it. F2 is 262, the other capacity with just double of F4, and the capacities are also like F4, F8, F16. They keep on doubling up. The F64 without commitment, without any reservation, would be around $8,000. With commitment, you get around 41% off, which is going to be around $5,000. And with F64, you will get free viewer licenses. Means your viewers will become free. You can use it for direct lake mode as an import lake mode. Both you can use. Yes, there are storage of individual licenses which are still available, and that you can find in the license page. Let's say Pro storage and PPU storage is also available with their own workspaces. But yes, you can use capacities that commits the number of compute units for you. You are not using the shared one in that one. So that's there, and then there are licensing benefit. Also, when you buy Fabric capacity, you can also use other Fabric items. other than Power BI. Please remember the license only are required for Power BI viewers and creators. It is not required to do any Fabric item like creation of lake house, doing data modeling, data transformation using the PySpark, etc. Sujit, hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the elaborate answer.
If we have the two fact tables, how would we make relationship with dimension? Dimension you can always relate. See, I said fact cannot join with fact, and dimension cannot join with dimension. But doesn't mean that dimension cannot join with fact. That's the star schema rule. In Snowflake, you can join dimensions with each other. So even if I have purchase fact, I can join with the item geography. Instead of customer, I will have vendor and date table. I can join multiple facts. There's no problem. One dimension can join with n number of fact. One fact can join with n number of dimensions. There's no problem. You should not try to join fact with fact, dimension with dimension. While practical, it is possible to do it in Power BI. Try avoiding creating loops or multiple paths. I could got the link to join bit later. Can you send? I think the Teams link you want, it should be available in the information. Rajendra can post it. I think with that, I think we are already over time. So thank you all for this session. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And if you still have a question, you can you can connect me on the chat, or you can join